Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Guide to Starting a School Cooking Club webinar. My name is Lindsay Corbin, and I am the project co-lead for school food with Nourish Nova Scotia. Very pleased to be welcoming you here today. I'm going to start off with a land acknowledgement. So we live and work in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Mi'kma'ki is covered by treaties of peace and friendship. And as treaty people, we humbly commit to mutual agreements of peace, respect, and friendship that are reflected in these living documents. We recognize the vital role that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities play in the stewardship of the lands and waters that provide food for our food system. And we are committed to honoring and uplifting Indigenous food sovereignty. June is National Indigenous History Month, and I live in Pictou, so you can see that on the map there, Pictou County, New Glasgow area, and I've been following Pictou Landing First Nations social media on National Indigenous History Month, and it states that this is a time to bring growth by building new connections with each other and our non-Indigenous neighbors through learning, sharing, and mutual respect. And one way to do this is through cultural gatherings like their upcoming Mawiomi, and where non-Indigenous neighbors are invited to understand and witness the richness of Mi'kmaq culture and to celebrate together. I'm planning to attend this weekend, and I encourage everyone to seek out similar opportunities in your communities. So next, I'm just going to share a little bit about Nourish in case you're new to us. So Nourish Nova Scotia was established in 2013 to support the development of school breakfast programs across our province. Our mission was born out of the passion and determination of dietitians, nutritionists, community members, and the provincial government who believed in the right for all young people to be well nourished and reach their full potential in the classroom and in life. Over time, we've expanded our work to help cultivate healthy eating environments for children and youth across Nova Scotia through advocacy, capacity building, food literacy, and fund development. Today, we work across school and community settings to increase access to nutritious food, create welcoming spaces for youth to connect through food, and facilitate youth leadership in programs and policies that affect them, all with a view to advancing equitable and sustainable food systems. Next slide. Nourish Nova Scotia's mission is to inspire and equip young people in Nova Scotia to learn about food and transform the food systems around them. So here's a quick snapshot of our program areas that support that mission. So we have a farm to school snack program, and our coordinator supports volunteers in schools across Nova Scotia to get kids snacking on local produce. We also have a Grow, Eat, Learn team, which includes a coordinator and regional garden mentors who support school community gardens and growing spaces. Several of our team members have also been building our Youth Food Leaders program in partnership with youth who co-design a series of sessions on food skills. And finally, as the project co-leads for school food, my colleague Jenny and I work in partnership with a range of community organizations and government departments to support advocacy, capacity building, food literacy, and fund development. Next slide. So we recently launched a new website and with it our new learning hub. And so we wanted to showcase this here today. This is where you are eventually soon, very soon going to be able to find the guide to starting a school cooking club. You'll find a wealth of information and resources to support your work in cultivating positive food environments for young people. We will continue to add to this hub over time, and we're always happy to collaborate with partners to create resources that will make an impact. And that's exactly what we did with the guide to starting a school cooking club when we partnered with Shally. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. So my name is Shelly Manuel. I'm a youth engagement coordinator with Health Promoting Schools in Northern Zone, and I work with CCRCE specifically. And so UpLift, it was a partnership that existed between 2019 and 2024. And it was a provincial initiative to increase youth voice, youth leadership, and youth engagement in health promoting schools. So it wasn't really separate. It was it was under the umbrella of health promoting schools, but just put extra resources, including staffing, into just bringing forth that youth voice. And we wanted to include them in the recognition here, even though they don't exist. The idea for this toolkit came from many students across the province using their UpLift grant that they had to start some cooking clubs. And then, so just this past June, youth engagement coordinators were absorbed into public health as permanent employees. So there is a youth engagement coordinator in every RCE now, including CSA Pay. And so they joined the school health promoters, which have been in place for some time. So Health Promoting Schools is a provincial framework that uses a comprehensive approach to support healthy school environments. It's based on an international framework endorsed by the World Health Organization. Health Promoting Schools is known by different names across the province. So there's comprehensive school health, healthy school communities, in Cape Breton's Blossom, but it's all kind of the same work. And so further on, when we talk a little bit about grant and funding opportunities, we'll chat about how you can find out who your HPS team members are in your region if you don't know them already. So this toolkit, I'm going to pass it back to Lindsay in a second to review the toolkit, but I just wanted to give a little bit of the backstory, which was that I know certainly in my region, CCRCE, we gave a one-time $5,000 grant to every school in the RCE for students to assess their school and come up with ideas for making their schools a healthier, happier place. And that the projects ranged from things around nutrition, physical activity, social and emotional health. But I did find at the elementary level in particular, but also at the high school level, there were so many students interested in hands-on cooking experiences. And so lots of smoothie clubs and cooking clubs. And because in CCRCE, we have, I think, about 66 schools, and each one is so different in the building, the culture, all of that, and the staffing. So I felt like over time, I saw so many versions of cooking clubs run by principals, by teachers, by support staff, by community members, ones that happened at lunchtime, ones that happened after school, ones that had a cultural flair, ones that had, like, there was just so many nuances to them. And even one little school didn't have access to a kitchen, so they had a no cooking club, which made things that did involve ovens and stoves. So I just over time was collecting a lot of different ways of doing cooking clubs and sending like templates and things across schools, and connecting with partners across the province. And then I felt like it would be really great to have this all wrapped up into a nice toolkit. So I reached out to Nourish, and they were wonderful that they took this on. And then we had a little working group of school health promoters, youth engagement coordinators, public health nutritionists, a couple of food inspectors, some school staff, some community partners who would review the drafts over the course of the past year, and give feedback, and then Nourish would make those updates. And now this week we will be able to share the final draft. So I'll hand it over to Lindsay.
Thanks, Shelly. So I'll just give a brief overview of the guide itself. So it starts out with some inspiration from stories of impact of the cooking clubs, some of which you're going to hear more about today, straight from the folks that have contributed them. And then it moves on to a couple of important context pieces to help you really set the tone, create a positive food environment for young people, including through the use of neutral food language. And on a side note, we have another webinar that is just dedicated to that topic alone. And then the next three sections are really getting into the nuts and bolts. So, how do you plan your cooking club? What are the things that you need to think about when you're planning it? Who do you need to involve? Then, in terms of implementation, yeah, creating we've got lots of tools there to help you implement a variety of different things. As Shally mentioned, there's so much flexibility for what this can look like in your school, and so there's guides, there's tools, there's resources to help you navigate that. And then also in evaluating and reflecting and sharing what you've learned and your experience in doing a cooking club. There's a section for that. Um, Followed by lots of resources. So there's lots of recipes, there's equipment list, and also then this printable planning form. So really, we've tried to think of everything and compiling kind of from all of those, examples and real world experience that Shally had and others that you're going to hear from had on this call, pull it all together into this toolkit. So we've tried to think of everything so that you don't have to, but also wanted to, mention that while the guide is, of course, filled with ideas and inspiration to help you get started, the goal is to also engage students and in creating a cooking club that is meaningful to them and meets their needs. So that's just a quick overview, and now I'm going to hand it over to Scott. I think is first. He's going to talk about HRCE and the final ingredient.
So, hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm just going to pull up the presentation here so you can follow along. Perfect. Great. Awesome. There we go. So hi everyone, my name is Scott. I'm a youth engagement coordinator in HRCE, he, him pronouns. And also with me today is Darlene. Darlene, do you want to say hi as well?
Hi, I'm a youth health center coordinator at Marine Drive Academy in Sheet Harbor.
Perfect. So Darlene was the wonderful staff champion for this project. So I just wanted to start off by sharing a bit about the origins of the program. So the program is called The Final Ingredient, and the group of students that put it all on and all together name themselves the Gourmet Goobers. Just speaks a little bit to the silliness and the sense of humor that they have. But I wanted to speak for a minute about the importance of providing a space for students to be creative and come up with these ideas. So this program was designed by a group of 15 students, mostly in grades 9 to 12, that identified interest in preparing and cooking food. So a lot of them spent a lot of time in the youth health center. They found it a very safe space. They wanted to, get away from the hustle and bustle of the school environment and find that safe haven where they could chat about ideas. But it was also there that they found out they had a lot of similarities, a lot of, ideas to improve food access, enhance food literacy, and just create that not just a cooking club, but that healthy social environment where they could hang out while they were cooking and learn a little bit about each other. So one of the first things they did was highlight the importance of a program like this and a club like this in the school. So the school at Marine Drive Academy, it's down in Sheet Harbor. It's in a rural area. There's not a lot of options for groceries. There's not much for public transportation. So for families and students to be able to learn how to cook with what they have is really important. And that was identified very early on. There's also not a lot of clubs, programs, or opportunities for youth in the area outside of your typical soccer and basketball. So they wanted to create something that students who wanted a more low impact club and opportunity could be a part of. And then finally, they had a love for cooking, learning, and social interaction. students come from all different backgrounds and cultures, whether it's Indigenous or German, or just a student who loved cheese and wanted to share some recipes that involved the versatility of that. So they applied for a few different grants, and I was happy to be able to work with them through the student engagement grant that we offer here in HRCE. So some of the goals and objectives that the students wrote down. And another thing I'd like to highlight is everything you see in this presentation is student voice. So it's taken from some of the evaluations they've done, some of the grants that they've applied for. This is all from their application or just from some conversations that Darlene and myself have had with the students. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through everything. These are 5 of the 7 or 8 goals that they have highlighted. And this was our budget that, again, we kind of worked with the students to come up with this. We had to purchase a fridge and a microwave for proper storage and cooking of food in the school. That's really the only things we were missing. One thing I'll highlight here is that the students really wanted to be all about sustainability and environmentally safe practices. So we bought a lot of reusable food containers to limit the waste. And then another really fun part of this budget was the memory cookbook that the students are actually in the process of putting together right now. So they're going to print off a book that's all their recipes, some really nice photos, some moments and quotes, and then they're all going to take it as a keepsake. So you just get that pride of accomplishment that the students worked really hard, and now they have something to show for it and some recognition there. And then I'll share a few photos of the aprons and the logos and the chef hats near the end of the presentation. So just kind of to show you the actual budget you'll need for a program like this is much less than what you see here, because we did purchase some commercial equipment with this. So a little bit about the prep for sessions. Just want to give another shout out to Darlene here, as she provided a space for students to meet every lunch period to go over recipes, learning, shopping list, and really what they wanted to do throughout the program. They came up with a list of roles, so they rotated through this based on what the recipe was and if they could connect it to something that they were interested in sharing. So each session there was a head chef, a sous chef, a photographer, someone who took the lead if they were a little more comfortable with the recipe. And then we also had some community members and local chefs and even former students come in and share a little bit with them as well. They talked about the food literacy aspect of the program. So what can we learn? What can we share? And then who can support us in the community, or is there an opportunity for us to give back in regards to food security in the community? And then after a few weeks, they even designed a Google Classroom where they would share ideas, share recipes, share thoughts, and things like that. And then another really fun thing they did was they created a playlist that was a mixture of upbeat tunes, but also food-related songs to play in the kitchen. So the program was designed to be for 15 weeks, with each week highlighting a different area of food or a food literacy or a skill development opportunity for them. So we had some traditional beef stew that went along with our comfort food. In Asia, we did some sushi, edamame, and Korean pork. And then there was a chili cook-off that a former student who had taken part and done really well in a chili competition came back and supported the students in. There's the flavors of India, where a staff and a family from northern India came in and talked a little bit about the taste of India. We highlighted Germany, some cookies from around the world, some indigenous cuisine. Sheet Harbor has one of the highest number of indigenous folk in the province, so it was really important that we highlighted the local cuisine as well. We did some pizza from Italy, some Syrian food, and then a local chef came in to teach. They really wanted to learn some knife skills, so like proper ways to cut vegetables, what knife is used for meats, veggies, and other things. And then they have a few sessions left where they're going to do some more fun recipes there. So highlighting some outcomes of the program. So across the 15 weeks, over 30 students and staff are introduced to foods from cultures they haven't tried before. 15 unique meals will be prepared over the course of the program. Um, I love this program because it does really create some partnerships, and not just between students, but also we had teachers, staff members coming in all of the time to see what the students were up to and to support the students and tell them they were doing such a great job. And that recognition for students was such a big part of what they did. There'll be a lot of story sharing through the development of a cookbook, sharing photos, recipes, and learnings. And then to piggyback on top of what the students are already doing, they just secured a $4,000 grant to start a school garden. So they've just built the garden boxes, and a lot of the soil and things are starting to come in now. So they can continue on as a group and learn some new skills around gardening. And then finally, the students are starting to report higher self-confidence and comfortability in their skills through this program. So they're able to, and they're more comfortable to start applying for more grants, to spend more time together, and they really want to focus on what they accomplished this year and take that momentum forward. Also wanted to highlight a few challenges that we faced during this program and that you might face in the future. But the first is finding enough time to prepare and cook. Darlene many times went out of her way to travel to neighboring towns, communities, grocery stores, because we just couldn't find some of the ingredients locally. So again, thank you to Darlene for supporting this program so greatly. Funding and sustainable funding is always the challenge. We had a few students that kind of dropped out of the program after we heard no from a couple of the grants that we applied for. So kind of keeping that momentum going even after hearing what you don't want to hear can be a challenge. So how do you keep students engaged even after they hear bad news? We really wanted to support local as much as we could, but for some of the recipes where they were from many parts of the world, it was really hard to do that. So we did have to go outside. And then we lost a few weeks of our program due to scheduling conflicts such as trips, events, and clubs. But thankfully, we were able to use the kitchen during the O2 program. And a lot of what they did connected to the curriculum outcomes. So it was decently simple enough to book some kitchen space when we had that time. So if there's any questions, I know we have a question period at the end, and I'm also happy to share this presentation if anyone is interested in using it as a guide and an inspiration.
Thank you so much, Scott. That is amazing. Sounds like the students had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great time. It's makes everything so worthwhile when you're supporting the students and you see how much energy and enthusiasm they have to learn and to share and to grow.
Awesome. All right, and I'm going to pass it back to Shally next.
So yes, well, anyone who has questions for Scott, will have space at the end, and then people can ask questions to anybody. So thank you so much, Scott. That was even just getting your slides in advance. I took out a few tips even before the webinar started that I thought were so fantastic, including I liked the roles of the chefs, or like the chef and the photographer and all that stuff, and the playlist were really nice little extra pieces. So I'm going to chat a little bit about a cooking club at E.B. Chandler Junior High. And initially, the community partner who led this program was supposed to do the presentation, but she's off on a leave right now. So I'll do my best job to share from the program. So we can go to the next slide, I think. So this program started, interestingly, with it stemmed from a late bus pilot. And so CCRCE had some funds through the Mass Casualty Commission report to pilot a late bus and to try to address the barrier that many students in rural communities face in joining after school programs. So Amherst is in a town of Amherst, but there's also students who come from up to 30, 40 minutes away in either direction. So it did seem important because those kids told the school that they weren't able to join programming. So the school actually first reached out to see if we could help with late busing. And once we had that in place, then we actually ran a whole bunch of programs on Wednesdays. And the students, the school surveyed the students to see what they wanted to do after school. And one of the most popular ideas was a cooking club. At that time, there weren't any staff in the school who had the capacity to commit for weekly leading a cooking club. And so we reached out to a community partner, which was Maggie's Place Family Resource Center. They have a center in Truro and in Amherst. The one in Amherst has been there for almost 30 years. It's an incredible resource, and they do a lot of cooking programs. So I had reached out to them, and they signed on right away. They were very excited to work with the school. So Karen LeBlanc, who was supposed to be the one presenting, is Salt of the Earth, is the longest standing Maggie's Place staff member. She's been there 27 years, loves cooking and cooking with kids in particular. So she was signed on, but then we actually were also using a partnership with Maggie's Place to have supervisors for an arts and crafts club. But all those kids ended up joining cooking. So we ended up with 3 and sometimes 4 staff members from Maggie's Place, which was really fantastic. So Maggie's Place, in this case, they did all the planning. They did the recipes, the grocery shopping, prepping the students, like all those pieces. So we really wanted to share this story in the webinar because we know there are lots of schools that are just maxed out with everything that's on everyone's plate. So this is an example of how you can sometimes identify a community partner who can really take the lead on things. So this E.B. Chandler is a school, it's a grade 7 and 8 school. I think there's about 300 students there. So this was open to any grade 7 and 8 student. And we ended up with about, I'd say on any given week, there were probably between 20 and 25 registered. And the numbers were between 10 and 25, I'd say, each week. Next slide. So there's Karen with some students cooking. So we did it out of the old family studies room, which interestingly, there is no family studies offered at the school and there hasn't been in some time, but the classroom is used by the social emotional learning teacher who's actually in the bottom picture there. And she's been amazing. And she does come to most of the cooking clubs. It's just she wasn't able to make that full commitment, but it was great to have her because it's her space. She knew where everything was. And so actually each of the 4 stations made different things every week. And so it was like a full smorgasbord of food. So there was usually like an entree, somebody making biscuits or some kind of side, a salad, and a dessert. And it started off with Karen giving instructions. And then there was an adult at every station really kind of being there for support and helping. And we all noticed it was an 8-week program. And halfway through, the kids just started walking in and going, washing their hands and going straight. Like the adults were totally hands off. And it was really amazing to watch. They just organized themselves into groups. We often were doubling or even tripling the recipes so that there was lots to take home. So they were doing that math themselves. And so sometimes that worked out and sometimes there was a very, very garlicky garlic bread one day. But that was fun. One of the challenges for us is that the buses, just based on the bus driver schedules, the last bell rings at 3 and the program had to end at 4:30 for the bus drivers on their end of things. So we only had an hour and a half. We did always get everything cooked, but kids we didn't have the experience of sitting down and eating together, which we had been hoping for. So kids were kind of eating as it was made. But then we had, similar to Scott and Darlene, we had takeout containers. And that was one of the biggest successes because they weren't just taking home a serving for themselves. They were just like very excited to take it home for their families, their siblings, that sort of thing. And we also would store some in the fridge in a classroom that kids could come back the next day and grab food as well. The impact that kids, it said that they learned they had a lot increased confidence cooking and made new things that they were making at home. But I have to say, as an observer, the thing that I saw that I loved the most was the social connections. And it was the peer-to-peer connection, people spending time with their friends, but also making new friends. And then also the relationships between the adults and students. Some of the students were participating in programs at Maggie's Place because Karen's been in the town forever, and she like knew these kids' parents and grandparents. So there was a really strong like family vibe. Like they're just kids were talking about their day and their lives, and like it was just a really, really incredible social environment. And then Maggie's Place, who I had hoped could be here, it was really incredible for me to hear their perspective, like what it's been for them as well. Even though the center's been around for a long time, they haven't actually done programs like this in the school. So it was really lovely for them to make that connection. There's conversations happening. They do a lot of programming over the summer, but they just have a regular kitchen. So they actually like the 4 stations. So they're talking to the school about possibly using the school over the summer for their programming. They definitely want to do it again next year. They are offering to support the other schools in the area. So it's been a really neat partnership in that way as well. And then tips for success. If you can do more time, an hour and a half is too short. Similar to Scott and Darlene, I loved the memory book of making their own, the kids making their own book with their own photos, and that sort of thing is amazing. Maggie's Place does have their own little cooking book that they gave to everybody, recipe book that they gave to all the students. And then once in a while, if there was one that wasn't in the cookbook, we would just photocopy and make sure that we gave it available to everyone. The takeout containers were amazing. And we tried to get them to bring them back week after week, but that part wasn't very successful. But hopefully they can still use them at home. Making extras was really key. We just know in this day and age with inflation and everything that it's always helpful to have extra food. This program didn't do it this year, but the school did run a short cooking club a few years ago, and every week they had a mystery chef, which was a teacher that really wanted to be involved and help out, but couldn't make the commitment for the full program. So each week the students were excited to find out which, like some weeks it was the math teacher or the phys ed teacher, and they were excited to see who was going to show up. And I think that was what I wanted to share about the club.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shelly. That sounds so cool. Really, really inspiring to hear all of those ideas and stories, and as well as the challenges and tips for success. And there'll be time at the end for questions, but for now I'm going to turn it over to Twyla Dean and Lisa McNutt.
Okay, well, I'm in a new role this year. It's called engagement teacher. There's only 3 of us in CCRCE, and I was trying to think of some ways I could help the schools get students more engaged in coming to school. So I know food insecurity has been an issue. So I came up with an idea to have a cooking club at several of the schools that I work at, which is 16 in total, but I applied for a Nourish grant and received $5,000. So I asked principals who might be interested in offering the program at their school, and I would take care of everything as long as I had a staff member to help me out. So our adolescent outreach worker, Carly Taggart, offered to assist me, and then Twyla joined in as Schools Plus to help me out with the first couple actually. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so we did an 8-session program, and we focused on making meals that were really easy, simple, affordable, healthy, and delicious at the same time. So something that kids would be able to take home and make themselves. We kind of wove in conversations about healthy foods, but keeping it very neutral, some food literacy, some healthy eating practices, and we would make the meal, eat it together, and like Shelly said at the other school, they made enough that they could take home to their families. Next slide. So at each school, it just depended on who was available to kind of help out. We were very fortunate that Schools Plus was open to helping us out. Sometimes it was the school counselor, again, adolescent mental health outreach worker, but I love the idea of reaching out to the community and getting those people in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide. I use ChatGPT, Shelly. That's where I got the ideas for these for these names. So the very first week we talked about, kitchen health and safety, kind of made it an interactive game, and we did an ultimate smoothie challenge. Again, we only had an hour and a half as well. The next week we do a breakfast bonanza. And then we take them to the grocery store and we bought vegetables and we tried a variety of different dips like hummus and tzatziki. We did make homemade tzatziki, came back to the school and practiced our knife cutting skills. We just, again, kept it really easy. We made some quesadillas, some mini pizzas. What would you find in a food pantry at the school? And they always come up with the idea, pasta and sauce. So that's literally what we made. And we were making meals for a family for under $5. So that was a good lesson for them to know budgeting if they need to consider how much food is costing. Comfort food really depended on the group. We talked through some different ideas and they came up with the ideas. And our final session is a Master Chef challenge. So get their ideas again. This next one I'm doing at Onslow Junior High, we're doing a burger challenge. So we're going to make gourmet burgers. And we last week kind of brainstormed different ways we could spice it up and get them to try things that they haven't tried before. And then we award them points. So we do provide transportation. And these are usually, well, the kids that I was targeting are kids who don't often have an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities at the school. And after the first couple of sessions at Truro Middle School, Twyla and I were like, how are we going to get these kids to clean up? Because they would make this wonderful meal and eat it, and then they were done. They didn't want to clean up. So we started passing out tickets and getting them to put their names on them. And then at the end, we'd draw, and literally it was like whatever food was left over, and it was like they won the lottery. But the final week, the Master Chef Challenge, whatever prizes we can get donated. Often it's like gift cards for grocery store. Twyla donated a blender one time. We had cookie decorating kits and just whatever we can get our hands on, cooking books, that sort of thing. So that is very motivating for them. And yeah, I mean, I did a little evaluation at the end, and the students all really enjoyed it. Some of them said that was the only reason that they came to school that day was because they knew they had cooking club after school. The confidence that they built was really incredible. And I will let Twyla maybe talk a little bit more about participating.
Sure. So I'm Twyla Dean. I'm the Schools Plus facilitator, and I have 8 schools in the Truro, Bible Hill area. And I have outreach workers and child and youth care practitioners on our team. And we have not only participated in Lisa's cooking groups, but at 2 of our schools, but also in the past, I think it was about 3 years ago, we had a couple of outreach or child and youth care practitioners bring some of their kiddos grades 3, 4 over to a middle school. So we joined 3 schools and we had, I think there was about 12 to 15 kiddos and 4 adults, and we felt like we needed about 20 more adults, but it was fun. It was chaotic, but the kids loved it. We were able, with that many adults, we were able to transport a lot of the kids. So I was driving actually almost 40 minutes outside of the school area, 35, 40 minutes, because one kiddo lived in a very rural area and would not have had that opportunity to be able to participate. And this story kind of warms my heart because he was not doing well in a lot of other areas of school, but he absolutely loved the cooking group. So, he was looking forward to that. We were doing that, I think it was twice a week, I think, was it twice a week, Lisa, for 4 weeks? Yeah. And so anyhow, he came every day, every time we had the class. He loved it. Wasn't really keen on trying a whole lot of the foods, but he would take them home and then would tell stories about him doing the using some of those skills that he learned at home for his family, which I think is fantastic. yeah, like Lisa said, we have a lot of kiddos that, you know, we're not attending, or the food security concerns. Being able to have them eat what they make, if we had some time during that hour and a half, they would, you know, munch on some of the food, but also to be able to pack up food in those take-home containers for them to take home for their family. I mean, that was huge, because some of them, you know, may not have that opportunity otherwise. When we did the grocery tour with Lisa, some of the kids had never gone into the grocery stores with their families. They weren't aware of like prices and stuff like that. So that was a huge learning thing for them. And then there was the cooking group that we did a couple years ago. The kids learned, I think it was about 10 weeks. And the very last week, they knew this from the beginning, that they would have to prepare a meal all on their own with very little adult supervision. And so they learned all of these skills the whole way along. And then they would serve this we were in the family studies room at one of our schools, and they would share this meal with their family. So a mom, a grandmother, whoever could show up at that time frame. It was an after school. They came, and we had two huge long tables with, oh my goodness, probably 25, 30 people sitting at those tables. No phones were out. People were having conversations. They were eating the food. The kids made the food, served the food. And it was just a really heartwarming thing to see, because that doesn't often happen. And, you know, kids tell us that sometimes they go home and they make the meal and they're eating it on their own, or, you know, they're eating on the run because families are busy. So that was really nice to see. And yeah, we're looking forward to hopefully hosting many more cooking groups and expanding them within the rest of our schools.
Thank you so much, Twyla and Lisa. Yeah, lots of great creative ideas, even if some of them did come from ChatGPT, and also just love that story that you just shared, Twyla.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to Norma, Jessica, and Emma.
Hi, folks. I see my slide is up there, so maybe I'll start if that's okay with the rest of the folks, and I'll be quick. So I'm Emma. I'm the Youth Health Center Coordinator with Public Health in the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Center for Education. And so I serve two of the more rural schools. And so I'll very quickly chat about some of the fun things that we've been doing at each of those schools. So the first school that I work at, it is Ricken School of the Narrows, and it's in Iona. And so I help facilitate a youth wellness leadership team at that school. And we sat down last year and we were like, okay, what do we want to do this year? How are we going to, get some different youth involved and really engage our school community? And the students came up with the idea of putting out a Google survey to all of the students to kind of see what the school wanted to do. And so the top kind of areas that came out of that survey was cooking, culture, and movement. And so from there, the folks on that leadership team were really keen about the cooking portion. So we partnered with our school health promoter, mental health and addictions health promoter, our municipality's recreation and active living coordinator, our school administrators, and as well as our local health promoting schools committee to kind of start to develop this cooking activity. So a lot of behind the scenes work went into kind of the creation of this. I won't get into that, but it does take a lot of planning. So a little forewarning for anybody kind of trying to create their own cooking groups. It's a lot of planning. But what kind of came out of that is the students were able to create about 4 sessions of cooking. And so the kids came up with what they wanted to cook. And we were able to do that during the school day, which was, I think, a really big a really important thing because, again, very rural school transportation for after school programs is a barrier for students. And a lot of the time students can't participate because they don't have someone to pick them up after school. We don't have a late bus. So during school time, it was important for us to have our cooking club during school time to make sure that all students that wanted to participate could. So we did 4 cooking sessions, which went over really well with the students. And we also did an outdoor day, which included some outdoor activities, a lot of like team building stuff, which was really nice to see. And we were able to bring in a visiting teacher who has an outdoor like learning education certificate, and he was able to facilitate outdoor cooking with the students, which was really fun. And we spent the whole day outside, and it was just a really lovely day for those students. We got a lot of feedback from the students. Lots of them said that they enjoyed like getting to interact with the kids in different grades. They liked the socializing aspect with their peers. It was important for us when we did our cooking that we had time at the end, that everybody got to sit down and enjoy the meal together and talk about, you know, what they liked about the day and what they didn't like about the day. And so that was really important. And then a lot of the kids, they liked having the meal, right? They felt like a sense of accomplishment and pride in the meal that they cooked for themselves, and then they got to enjoy it. And then, of course, if there was any leftovers, they were always happy to take that home as well. And so that was kind of at that school. And then the other school that I work at is at Bedeck Academy. And I will say, kind of to back up a bit, at Rankin School, our biggest barrier was space. And it is still a huge barrier. We don't have like a dedicated cooking space for students, and even a spare classroom sometimes is hard to come by at that school. So that's definitely a barrier at that school for us. And so very much looking forward to this toolkit to help kind of troubleshoot that in the future, and kind of to come up with some creative ideas, because it is really important for the students to be able to engage in cooking. And yeah, so then at Bedeck, it's a totally different story. We have this big, beautiful cooking lab that unfortunately wasn't being used to its full potential. And so for that project, we were kind of, through informal conversations with students, they were saying how much they would love to get in and learn some more cooking skills, but there just wasn't equipment in the space to use. Like, we didn't have pots, we didn't have pans, we had like old cheese graters. So it really just wasn't functional. And that was a big barrier for folks to, go in during class time and cook, or for after school programs. A lot of the time people were bringing things in from home, and then their things would go missing or something would break. So that was a big barrier. And so in chatting with the students, we said, okay, well, what can we do about this? What are like your ideas? And they decided that they would apply for a grant. We were able to apply for a health promoting schools sprouting health micro grant that's available in our area, and they were lucky enough to receive the grant. So they got, I think it was $700. And so from there, they did a lot of work. They cleaned the whole entire kitchen. They did an inventory of everything we had, everything that was like needed to be replaced. They did some consulting with a parent group that comes in to do some baking and stuff for the students. So they talked to them. What do they need? What's missing from their perspective? They did all of that work. They were able to kind of source all of the things that we needed to buy to make the kitchen functional. They reorganized everything. They labeled everything. And now it is such a beautiful space to use. Everything is so easy to find. And so we finished this project in April-ish, and even since then, we've seen such a huge uptake in the use of the space. And we actually did an adulting 101 for our older students in grade 11 and 12 at the deck the other week. And because of the work that had been put in by this group of students running the cooking portion of our Adulting 101 went absolutely seamlessly because of the kind of the back end work that they put in. So we're really excited to see how the kitchen is going to be used kind of moving forward and giving students that opportunity to go into the space and cook and learn. So that was really wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much, Emma. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful ideas that you shared. And I know we're getting tight on time, so we'll move on to the funding opportunities. Shally, if you'd like to come back and go over those.
Sure. Did we hear from the other youth engagement or the youth health center coordinators? Thank you, Breton.
Emma had such a great presentation. I don't I don't have anything fancy like that, but I am up in Shetty Camp in northern Inverness County. And just want to say that my experience with cooking groups at both of my schools have been so positive in that the students are really engaged and have been engaged. I partnered with Schools Plus on both, and just seeing kids being able to put their hands on ingredients and being able to discover new foods has been very enriching. So just very, very positive. A few challenges up here is that transportation, late busing, especially I'm at Cape Breton Highlands, that covers from Shetty Camp down to, or from Pleasant Bay down to Marguerite. Late buses are on the same nights as all the other practices, so sports and drama club. And the students who tend to want to be part of these clubs or groups are the same that want to be part of everything. So finding time and finding the right night has been a challenge, but we have had fun with what we've had. The last thing that we've done at NDA and Shetty Camp was raclette. So I'm not sure if you guys know, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's like a fondue type event, and you have it in the middle of the table, and it has a stone or a grill and then little trays on the bottom where you cook your own food. So they were able to experience the prep and the cooking and it not taking 5 minutes to eat, but more like an hour to enjoy a meal together. So just wanted to provide that opportunity to be able to sit down and enjoy a meal with your friends or with your family. So it's been a great experience.
I love that. Thank you, Jessica. I will go over the funding opportunities, and then maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions and sharing, and then people can reach out and we can continue talking after the webinar through email if we need to. I just wanted to highlight 4 key sources of funding that I've seen within the schools that I work with that they've been able to tap into. The first one was School Advisory Council funds. So every school in Nova Scotia from Department of Education gets $5,000 plus $1 for every student for their SAC. Each school is unique in how they kind of make decisions around this fund, how they administer it. Sometimes the school, already has a plan. So if you reach out to the principal or the chair, you might not actually, it might not be an opportunity. They may have already decided what's happening with it, but there are certainly schools that I've worked with and I've heard from colleagues across the province where they're not actually sure what they want to do with their money. So you could chat with your principal or your SAC chair. At a school that I've worked with this year, they actually had students from the student council made a little presentation. They came to an SAC meeting and said what they would like some money for. So I feel like if you're working with kids that want a cooking club, you could either have those kids do the presentation or even take a video or just write a letter to the SAC and make a pitch for some of that. There's also the Healthy School Grant that also comes from the Department of Education, and it came out, I think, this was the second year of the funding. Next year will be the third year. It's also $5,000 plus $1 for every student. that every school gets annually. And this year it had a note with it that they really wanted it to be spent on physical activity related initiatives as a way of meeting the goals of the physical activity framework that they had released the year before. So I'm not sure for next year if there would be limitations on it, but it's something just to be aware of that you can ask your principal about. Health promoting schools grants, this depends on which RCE or CCP how it works in your area. A lot of regions do have youth grants or micro grants. And so that would be a great source of funding. I put our provincial HPS coordinator's contact information there, Renee Bujold. So she has agreed that if you email her, if you don't know who your school health promoter is or your youth engagement coordinator or any of your HPS people, you can reach out to her and she'll connect you in with your team, and then you can see what funding opportunities may exist. And then the other one that I've seen some success with in our part of the province is Community Health Board Wellness Funds. They used to be, the applications used to be in the fall. They're now in the spring, so it would have closed in May. But if you're doing some planning next year, you could apply next spring. You can go online and find out the contact information for your local CHB coordinator. And again, just a disclaimer, I guess, that each community health board has different ways of how, like, they may have certain priorities, they may have limitations of how much money they give to schools, they would have a different number of applications that they receive and how competitive it is, those sorts of things. But these are just some possibilities to be aware of. So within the week, we'll follow up with all the participants. So we'll send out a link to the webinar, a link to the guide, and then this grant info, we'll have this in a Word document with links. So you can just link right to the source of the funding there. And then I also wanted to mention that Nourish this past year had a food fund, which is how one of the groups that spoke was funded. It's uncertain next year whether that'll be available or not, but we just encourage folks to check back to the Nourish website and or sign up for their newsletter, and you can find out about those opportunities as they come forward. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Shally. So we just have a minute left, but I will, if it's okay for folks, you can obviously leave if you need to, but I will maybe just try to take 3 questions. I see that there's already one in the chat. So Brittany has asked, I'm curious from all of our presenters, but how many of you have an active food and nutrition class at your school? So grade 8, I think is typically when that is, and curious if there's any overlap. Anybody want to answer that? I know, Shally, you did say it isn't active at the school at EB Chandler that you spoke about, but does anybody have experience with overlap, I guess?
I can jump in. We don't have a class dedicated to that at either of my schools in at Badek Academy or at Rankin.
Thanks, Emma.
I know that Truro Middle has cooking as part of family studies, maybe.
Yeah.
And CCJHS, I don't know. I think Redcliffe does some cooking.
No, those are 2 of my schools. Truro Middle does. We didn't really have any overlap other than she was sweet enough to let us use space in the kitchen to store things, which was great because ours was after school, so it worked out well. The one at Redcliffe, because they only go to grade 7, they took that out of the curriculum a while ago. So unfortunately, they don't do that. But my outreach worker there is really great at doing some cooking, even if it's just with smaller groups. She'll do some cooking groups there because they have a beautiful kitchen. So it's great, yeah.
Thanks, Twyla.
And CEC, there's a food nutrition class that is an elective, but they're actually doing a free lunch on Thursdays now.
Ooh, that's great. I just saw Jessica shared we have a textile and nutrition class at NDA in Shetty Camp for grades 11 and 12 combined. Okay. And Jessica, has there been any overlap with the cooking club in that textile and nutrition class?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, our participants seem to be lower grades from 7 to 9.
Okay. Yeah, it is interesting because I think, yeah, as Shally mentioned, a lot of the, food and nutrition related classes have come out of the curriculum, and so this is filling a gap. But at the same time, where there are those classes, it'd be interesting to see where they could make a connection. Okay, and Cam is sharing about the kitchen brigades that his school took part in, and they partner you with a local chef who comes in. Yeah, and you can read it in the comments, but he's shared some details. I have heard of the kitchen brigades before too.
Yeah, and we'll send that link out as well. We did want to give a little bit more time. We are going to ask Cam to mention it in this question and discussion period because it's a super cool program, but I know we're short on time, but it's about 2,200 and they will, it's a national organization based out of Quebec and they will partner, they'll help your school find chefs in your area who come in and like take the lead on the entire thing. I just learned about it through Cam this year and it sounds like an incredible program, especially for schools if you don't have that in-house capacity to run the club.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that Paul Heighton runs it at North Nova, or
Oh,
sorry,
cool.
Northumberland.
Yeah.
Northumberland. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we're a little over time, folks. So thank you so much for bearing with us. We really enjoyed hearing from everybody today. So many wonderful stories, so many wonderful ideas. We will be following up with the obviously the actual toolkit, which will be posted, I believe on Friday. Is that correct? Just
I
making
think
sure.
that's what Leah said. And just for people, for folks, they're currently linking the recipes with their websites. There's just some like technical things they're just finishing up this week, and then the guide will be good to go.
Wonderful. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much.